Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We have one presentation tonight. We have the police department's going to award some citizens. Chief Brennan, would you please step forward and call the folks forward?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I actually have two different awards to do tonight. So the first award is a Citizens Award we'd like to present to one of our city employees, Dirk Coleman. Dirk, if you're in the audience, will you come on up? I'll do my best not to tell any jokes while Dirk is up here.
That's right.
On June 6th of 2012, Dirk was driving home from the gym when he observed smoke coming from behind a residence on 79th Way in Arvada. Not hearing any sirens, Dirk immediately stopped to investigate and to assist. He discovered that a large tree limb had broken loose, crashing down onto the power lines of a residence, starting a significant fire. The female at that residence, Carol Flowers, was busy getting her children to safety, warning neighbors, and calling 911. When she went outside to hook up her hose, Dirk met her, a total stranger. He greeted her, took the hose, and began fighting the fire. She stated that Dirk remained very calm and seemed to know exactly what to do. Dirk ensured that the porch area was wet down and then began to put water on the fire. Once the fire department arrived, he continued to keep the embers from catching the back porch and furniture on fire, and he remained on scene until Excel arrived and turned the power off, and the fire was completely extinguished. Afterwards, the homeowner, Carol, asked Dirk for his name and learned that he was a City of Wheat Ridge employee and had worked for both the Wheat Ridge Fire and Wheat Ridge Police Departments in the past. She was extremely impressed with his cool, calm, friendly, and yet, this is the part that kills me, professional demeanor.
At all times.
At all times. As he helped her get the situation under control and one that posed a significant danger to life and property. She was extremely grateful and had called the Wheat Ridge Police Department to express her feelings in regards to Dirk assisting her with putting that fire out. So on behalf of the Wheat Ridge Police Department, Dirk, we'd like to present you with our Citizens Award for your selfless act in helping a citizen in a critical situation and representing the city in an exemplary manner in a dangerous and difficult situation. You are being awarded the Wheat Ridge Police Department's Citizen Award and the Police Department's Ceremonial Challenge Coin for a job well done. I almost made the mistake of giving Dirk the opportunity to speak, but... We also have a Citizen Award for George Miller and Chad Grenda, if they're in the audience. You want to come on up? This one is a particularly touching commendation, and one I think that everybody in the audience will agree was a demonstration of extreme valor and bravery by these two citizens. On March 19th of 2012, at approximately noon, an attempted series of carjackings occurred in the 4200 block of Kipling Street at the Wheat Ridge Recreation Center. George Miller, Chad Grenda, and Michael Strong risked their own safety to assist a female who was being attacked. George was just outside of the recreation center when he observed two Hispanic males looking into cars and then heard glass breaking. He chased the two suspects northbound through a field which was adjacent to Kipling Street. Michael Strong had just come out of the Wheat Ridge Center with his wife. Michael had also heard glass breaking and saw George chasing two other men through a field. Michael got into his car and drove north on Kipling Street. The suspects had a sizable lead on George, but he continued to chase them. George saw the two suspects attack a female in a gold car at the Clear Creek Greenbelt parking lot. At the same time, Chad was coming out of the Armburst Pro Gym located at 4240 Kipling Street when he heard the female screaming for help and saw a Hispanic male pulling her out of the car. When Michael got to the Greenbelt parking lot in the 4200 block of Kipling Street, he also saw that one of the males was trying to force the woman out of a gold car. Michael stopped his car and ran toward the woman who was yelling for help. When George got to the parking lot, he saw one of the suspects trying to steal the gold car. George jumped inside the car and fought the suspect. During that struggle, the car began moving. At one point, the car was moving toward the female victim who was down on the ground. While George was fighting with the suspect, he was able to turn the steering wheel to avoid running over the victim. Meanwhile, Chad ran to the victim and grabbed the second suspect. The suspect broke away and ran. Chad chased the suspect into the parking lot of the Armburst Pro Gym and then onto Kipling Street. He tackled the suspect who was fighting back. At that time, Chad was aided by Michael Strong, and with his help, the two of them were able to hold and control the suspect on the ground. Shortly after Chad and Michael had gained control of the suspect, a second male suspect came to the aid of the suspect on the ground. He pulled a gun and pointed it at Chad and Michael and told them to back off. Chad and Michael were both in fear of being shot, and they ran back into the parking lot of the Armburst Pro Gym and took cover behind parked vehicles. George Miller, Chad Grenda, and Michael Strong all risked their lives to come to the aid of a victim of a crime in progress. Their roles also made the successful capture of these suspects a reality. They clearly demonstrated initiative, bravery, and concern for a stranger, and doing the right thing by becoming involved in making the suspects accountable for the crime they were committing. For their assistance, and on behalf of the Wheat Ridge Police Department and the City of Wheat Ridge, they're being awarded the Wheat Ridge Police Department Citizen Award and the Police Department Ceremonial Challenge Coin. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is citizens' right to speak. Is reserved for members of the public who wish to speak on any item that's not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed 3 minutes. Others may donate their time to the speaker at the podium for a total of 9 minutes. Please step forward, and if you want to speak for a public comment, just please line up along the wall, and please spell your last name for the record and state your city or your address. Please step forward. Please spell your last name for the record and state your city or your address, please.
My name is Peter Wallstrom, W-A-L-S-T-R-O-M. Members of council, ladies and gentlemen, every year cats are allowed to kill over 100 birds and other animals. When other cats are in heat, they will try to find them by meowing. When this happens, it's annoying. I feel that cats should follow the running at large rules that dogs have, according to the Wheat Ridge Municipal Code. Our code lacks a specific for cats. I've talked to several different agencies throughout Wheat Ridge. Animal control states that they can only touch a cat if it's dead or injured. A nuisance is just that. It's a nuisance. Officer Schrader with Animal Control states that he can only touch the animal if it's dead or injured. Mary at Animal Control, she's a supervisor there, says to check with the Westminster Municipal Code. I did that online, and Chapter 7 of their Municipal Code, Article 6.7.7, under animals and public nuisance states, it shall be unlawful for any owner of any animal to allow the animal to disturb any person. Okay, back to the Wheat Ridge Municipal Code, Chapter 4, under animals, Section 4-1, under definitions, says animal means any animal other than humans. And then in that definition it says running at large means off premises of the owner and not under the effective control of that owner, his agent, servant, or competent member of his family by means of a leash, cord, or chain not to exceed 6 feet. It lacks a specific for cats, and cats are becoming a big problem around not having control. They're just running around at large. I think our animal control here in the city should be more strict with this ordinance. Section 4.4-9, creating a disturbance or nuisance. Number A says it shall be unlawful for any animal owner to allow any animal or animals to create a nuisance. I don't see how our municipal code could state that, and then animal control say that they can't touch them unless they're dead or injured. Going further into our code, section 4-52, custody and disposition of impounded animals. I'd like to change this entire section here to include cats too, any animal. It's number one on our definitions of the code, but I'm still seeing cats, and they've been running around for years, I know. And I love cats, but not in my backyard at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any paperwork you want to give to the city attorney or to the police chief, feel free to, or the clerk.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lynette Namba, N-A-M-B-A, and I'm a Wheat Ridge resident from District 1. My husband and I moved here 2 years ago from Arvada, and we're committed to help make this community thrive. I would love for my daughter to grow up in a smoke-free community. As a member of Breathe Easy Wheat Ridge, we have seen support for our smoke-free Wheat Ridge proposal grow among individuals, organizations, and businesses. As a member of the leadership team for Live Well Wheat Ridge, I'm proud to announce our leadership team unanimously endorsed Breathe Easy Wheat Ridge's proposal for smoke-free indoor workplaces, bar and restaurant patios, and other outdoor areas such as parks, playgrounds, and transit waiting areas. In addition to Live Well, Right Coast Pizza, Ceviche's Restaurant, and Family Tree, a community nonprofit, have recently endorsed Breathe Easy Wheat Ridge's proposal. I want stronger smoke-free policies in Wheat Ridge to help protect all visitors and residents from secondhand exposure in public places. The science behind the harmful effects of secondhand smoke is indisputable, and it has been shown that restricting where people can smoke help those that want to quit stay quit. I want stronger smoke-free policies to help mitigate tobacco litter, reduce youth tobacco use, and to change the community norm. Although I'm a Colorado native, I lived in California for several years and observed firsthand the changed social norms around tobacco use in outdoor areas such as parks and beaches. I witnessed a teenager politely point out the no smoking sign on the beach and ask a woman to put out her cigarette. The woman initially seemed irritated with the request, but she obliged and even apologized that she didn't know about the law. Valuable police resources were unnecessary. I look to the council to pass a law that can do all of this in a meaningful way. A strong policy can be enforced and helps ensure it exists no matter who is in office. Among other things, in your leadership roles, you're charged with protecting the public's health. Our small but mighty Breathe Easy Wheat Ridge coalition can only do so much. We need our decision makers to take action and build off of our grassroots efforts. Please reach out to us with your questions.
Thank you. Please step forward and spell your last name for the record and state your city or your address.
I'm Lori Odom, O-D-O-M, and Wheat Ridge resident. My husband and I have lived in Wheat Ridge for over 36 years. I am also speaking about the smoke-free policies. We're very impressed and proud of what's gone on in Wheat Ridge and all the developments that in many ways promote a healthy lifestyle. And that is one of the major objectives that I have as a retired pediatric oncologist. Now, I'm really interested in promoting a healthy lifestyle for individuals of all ages. We know now that studies have been done that show that outdoor smoke exposure is and can be as dangerous as indoor secondhand smoke exposure. Once the policies were established and indoor smoking was decreased dramatically, people began to study the effects of outdoor smoke. And there's actually the first published, very well done trial at Stanford, published in May of this year, that talks about the detrimental effects of and the reality of the effects of secondhand smoke exposure from outdoor smoking. So we would really like to see the smoking policy extended to all public areas outdoors in Wheat Ridge. I prepared a handout that you'll get a little later, summarizing all the information that we know about secondhand smoke exposure. I think it would really be helpful to consider extending the smoke-free environment to dining areas, to transit areas, playgrounds, as Lynette mentioned, so important for growing children, all public recreational areas, and the 25 feet beyond entrances to any business. We know that a child with asthma who breathes just a wisp of smoke, even outdoors, can have a severe asthmatic attack triggered. And an adult with known heart disease who breathes just a wisp, the effects are almost immediate on the clotting and vessels to cause a heart attack or perhaps even a stroke. Now, normal adults or healthy adults, there are also significant detrimental effects. Pregnant women, babies, these are not immediate, but they are additive and they are significant. So, and also for growing children. They actually have significant effects from the exposure to secondhand smoke, probably because they are growing and metabolizing so rapidly, the toxins can get into the cells very readily. Hopefully in time there will be fewer smokers. We know that smoke-free policies will help people quit smoking, and that also will be a deterrent for people to start smoking. That ultimately is the goal, because we know that in 2012 tobacco is the single most important preventable cause of death.
So that's time. Thank you. Thank you. If you want to leave their paperwork with the clerk, that'd be great.
Hi, my name's Sarah Davis, D-A-V-I-S, and I'm a Wheat Ridge resident in District 1. Hopefully Dr. Odom's information was helpful in terms of clarifying the dangers that secondhand smoke poses both indoors as well as outdoors, and clarifying that it doesn't take very much exposure or a long time of exposure to have an immediate impact on our health. So the data has been clear from the long history of smoke-free laws passed at both the local level as well as the state level that smoke-free laws don't have a negative impact on the economy of a local city or of a state. Obviously, I think this is important to pass for the health impact alone of secondhand smoke, but as a Wheat Ridge resident, I not only want a healthy city to live in, I also want an economically vibrant city to live in. It's exciting to see the developments on the 38th Avenue corridor, and I'm excited to be a Wheat Ridge resident and see where that develops. So all of that makes me also pleased to be able to tell you a little bit about a survey that was recently done by one of our coalition partners, the Jefferson County Health Department. The survey surveyed residents that live within a half-mile radius of Wheat Ridge, so all around Wheat Ridge, to find out their views on whether they would be more or less likely to come into Wheat Ridge to visit parks, playgrounds, and recreation facilities, as well as bar and restaurant patios, if we did have a smoke-free policy in place. So we're still finalizing the data, and I'd love to meet more with each of you individually to talk about the details of that. But when you look at the folks who say that they're much more likely to visit our patios and parks if they were smoke-free versus those who said that they would be less likely to visit our parks and patios if they were smoke-free, the folks who are much more likely, it's 5 times greater. So there's a large support for folks who live outside of Wheat Ridge saying that they would come into our city. And while support is strong overall, those who report spending the most on shopping and dining show the greatest support for smoke-free patios for restaurants and bars. For those who say that they've never visited Wheat Ridge residents or bars, 54% said that they would be more likely to visit restaurants and bars in Wheat Ridge if the patios were smoke-free. So again, this is an issue that's not only important for our physical health, but I think also is well aligned with the city's interest in drawing more families and business to Wheat Ridge. So I look forward to talking with you each individually more to share those results. Thank you.
Thank you. Please spell your last name for the record and your city or your address.
My last name is Hill, Hill. I'm here for two reasons. The first one will be a nice reason. I'd like to thank the people from floodwater control or wastewater control. They took care of a problem on a ditch on 38th Avenue between Quail and Parfait. I want to thank them. They did it in a very fast time period. From Friday a week ago when I called it in, it was taken care of. As of today, they've done a marvelous job. That's my good news. My bad news is, how does the police department and the council feel about retribution for a person that wants to complain about a police officer's actions? On the 16th of July of this year, in the time frame of about 10 o'clock to 10:15, 10:30, I had reason to call the Wheat Ridge Police, and I asked for assistance. I hit a pothole, a good deep one at the time. It's been taken care of since. And the front end of my car is now out of alignment. The officer who came, and at this moment I prefer not to say anything about who the officer was, but the officer who showed up didn't seem to have much interest in it and told me it's really not his problem or Wheat Ridge's problem. So I sit there and I think, they used to have the words on the side of the car, to serve and protect. Well, I didn't need to be served or protected, but maybe a little help. I sat at that intersection on a folding chair that I have in my vehicle for 5 hours till I finally had it taken care of. I feel strongly that the officer who came there was not helpful. Now, I have gone to the state of Colorado. It was a DOT problem because it was an electric control box in the middle of the intersection of 38th Avenue and Kipling. DOT has taken care of it. They've told me what to do in a legal manner and to get money back for the problem that it was incurred. The Attorney General of the state of Colorado says, tell us who helped you, who was involved. I know the one name of the one man at DOT. I know the officer's name, but I called the officer twice and then a third time, so 3 times actually, and the officer does not seem to want to return phone calls. So what I'm asking, I see 2 police gentlemen here, police officers, cops, whichever you want.
Mr. Hill, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to talk to our police chief and Mr. Commander Lawrence, and you can pass that information on to them right now if you feel like it.
I don't feel like it because of the problem of retribution. I had an incident where I called in to ask who
Mr.
I
Hill,
had
I'm going to
talked.
ask you to please talk to our police chief about the...
Can you walk over there now?
Yes, thank you. And they can take your information, and there's not going to be any retribution. Yes. You got 13 seconds left. Thank you. Do we have anybody else who'd like to speak under public comment before we move on? Thank you. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 1, which is the consent agenda. Ms. Langworthy?
Thank you, Mayor. Item 1A, Resolution 40-2012, a resolution authorizing the appropriate city officials to execute an intergovernmental agreement by and between the County of Jefferson, State of Colorado, and the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, regarding the administration of their respective duties concerning the conduct of the coordinated election to be held on November 6, 2012. 1B, Resolution Number 41-2012, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2012 general fund budget, approving a supplemental budget appropriation to reflect the acceptance of the child car seat examination and replacement safety fair grant from the Colorado Department of Transportation in the amount of $4,884.20. And 1C, motion to award the RFQ-JN-12-24 Kipling Trail Design Contract to Bohannon Houston, Inglewood, Colorado, in the contract amount of $197,533.02, and to approve a contingency amount of $40,000. Is a motion in order?
Is anybody going to pull anything?
I would like to pull item 1C.
So a motion for item A and B, please.
I move to approve 1A and B.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve items 1A and B. Item C was pulled. It was seconded by Councilmember Stites. Discussion on 1A and B. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Mr. Demott, 1C.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding item 1C, I feel that an item with the financial and fiduciary and property impacts of this level needs to be an item of its own and not buried in the consent agenda. So if a motion is in order,
Motion's in order.
I move to postpone indefinitely the contract award of RFQ JN 1224 Kipling Trail Design to Bohannon Houston, Inglewood, Colorado, for the following reasons. I feel that a 10-foot sidewalk would encroach too far onto the properties of businesses and homes, and that a sidewalk of 5 feet in the area available to the city would make ample and a great impact to the east side of Kipling Street.
We have a motion to indefinitely postpone. Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion dies for a lack of a second. Would somebody like to make a motion? Another motion, please?
I move to award RFQ-JN-12-24 Kipling Trail Design contract to Bohannon Houston, Inglewood, Colorado, in the amount of $197,533.02 with a contingency amount of $40,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve. Item 1C was seconded by Mr. Stites. Discussion on item 1C. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-1 with Mr. Demott voting no.
Thank you. Mr. Demott, did you give your motion to the clerk?
I did.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 2, which is public input on the budget for 2013. Please step forward if you'd like to make any comments on the budget for 2013. Please spell your last name for the record and state your city or your address.
Good evening. I'm Joe Giordano, Giordano. I'm in Wheat Ridge. I'm off 35th Avenue near Reed Street. I just happen to be, well, first off, thank you guys. I represent Wheat Ridge 2020. I am your treasurer. I'm also their finance committee chair. We, every month we, go through the books, make sure it's, everything's in order. And I also, as a profession, I'm an accountant. I'm a professor at Metro State University of Denver. So go through there all the time and just wanted to thank the council right off the bat for your continued support of Wheat Ridge 2020. You guys have been wonderful throughout the years. Just last year, you guys funded us to help out assisting with the 38th Avenue project. And, as a resident right off 38th Avenue, extremely impressed with what's going on out there. Very excited. I understand that the political courage it took to move in that direction and some of the pushback, and I understand a lot of the negative pushback gets out there. But myself, my neighbors, the folks around us are excited and happy that 38th is actually looking good. What I'm really here for is I can't remember what next year would be. Is that 2013?
2013.
We will be asking for additional support for 2 of our programs. One is, they're very popular loan programs. One is Building Up a Business. The other is the Home Investment Loan Program. Great programs, very, very popular with people. Great Coast Pizza was one of the businesses that were benefited by this program last year. Currently, we're working with Ornamental Beads and Designs to, improve their business as well. And then also, we're working with, in the future, there's going to be a new brew pub over in the old Valencias. Is that what it's called? Yeah. Money is going to, really good use. Like I said, you guys have always been supportive. Just wanted to let you know that that request is going to be out there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else here to speak on the budget tonight from the public? So, seeing none, the next item on the agenda is public hearings and ordinances on second reading. The order of testimony will be city staff, the applicant, if we have an applicant, and then the public, followed by council discussion and questions. Please keep all comments germane to the issue. Item 3 is Council Bill number 12-2012. I'm going to open the public hearing. Councilmember DeMott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 12-2012, an ordinance disconnecting land located in Section 15, Township 3 South, Range 69 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Jefferson, State of Colorado, from the City of Wheat Ridge municipal boundary, case number ANX 12-01, Tomlinson Park.
Will the city clerk please assign an ordinance number?
This will be ordinance number 1516.
Move on to a staff presentation.
Just a brief one, Mayor. While this is an ordinance and a public hearing, I just don't want to discount the fact that that's the case. It's somewhat of a housekeeping or cleanup item for us that relates back to the city agreement with Arvada as it pertains to the Arvada Ridge development, the improvements to Kipling, and the associated drainage improvements in that Arvada Ridge area. The parcel in question is a 100-foot wide abandoned XL right-of-way. It was acquired by the city of Arvada in 2007, or deeded to them from XL. It has been improved for the purpose of the Arvada Ridge drainage improvements, and it's actually a part of Tomlinson Park, which is owned and maintained by Arvada and has been for some time. However, the property does remain in the city of Wheat Ridge when it was an XL right-of-way, and that was its only use before it was improved for those drainage and park improvements. It was in the city of Wheat Ridge. Now, with it being under the control and under the maintenance of Arvada, those are all improvements that they maintain and will maintain into the future. Just don't think it makes sense for that parcel to be in Wheat Ridge, and in fact, the intergovernmental agreement that was approved between the city of Arvada and the city of Wheat Ridge, in association with the previously mentioned Kipling and Arvada Ridge development and associated drainage improvements, they were required to initiate a disconnection of the property. So this has lagged a little bit, so I apologize for that. We've been waiting, frankly, for the property exchange to occur between XL and Arvada, and then just waiting for them to submit the appropriate documentation in terms of the onus was on them to prepare annexation maps, annexation petitions, et cetera. So we had a fairly limited control in our ability to encourage them to do that, but we're pleased that they have, and we're recommending approval of the disconnection. If City Council authorizes the disconnection, then it would be unincorporated, and Arvada would be free to incorporate it into their city, which is our understanding they would pursue.
Thank you. Do we have anybody here from the public to speak on item number 3? Seeing none, we'll move on to council discussion and questions. Do we have any council questions or discussions for item 3? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and a motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 12-2012, an ordinance disconnecting land located in Section 15, Township 3 South, Range 69 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Jefferson, State of Colorado, from the City of Wheat Ridge municipal boundary on second reading, and that it take effect upon recordation of the disconnection plat.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 3 as stated in the packet. It was seconded by Mr. Stites. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 4 is Council Bill number 13-2012. I'm going to open the public hearing. Councilmember Stites.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Council Bill number 13-2012, an ordinance adopting by reference the 2010 edition of the Model Traffic Code for Colorado, adopting amendments thereto, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewithin, providing penalties for Model Traffic Code violations, and making conforming amendments to Chapter 13 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws. Now, if that doesn't get you, this will. Cities and towns possess the authority to regulate traffic within their respective jurisdictions. Many Colorado municipalities do this through the adoption by reference of the Model Traffic Code for Colorado, MTC. The MTC is a comprehensive set of traffic rules and regulations promulgated and published by the Colorado Department of Transportation. The MTC generally mirrors the traffic laws adopted by the state legislature and codified in Title 42 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. The 2003 edition of the MTC was previously adopted by the city and currently governs traffic in Wheat Ridge. CDOT has published a 2010 edition of the MTC, which contains certain changes and updates to the 2003 edition, some of which reflect changes in state law. The 2010 edition of the MTC is most recent edition published by CDOT. This ordinance adopts the 2010 MTC by reference to bring the city's comprehensive set of traffic rules and regulations closer uniformity with the traffic laws of the state and with other jurisdictions that have adopted the 2010 MTC. See, I told you that was a good one.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Would the city clerk please assign an ordinance number?
This is ordinance number 1517.
Thanks. We'll move on to a staff presentation. Is that going to be Mr. Dahl, the police chief? Dealer's choice?
Dealer's choice, maybe, perhaps. The model traffic code revision is something that the police department, courts, tries to do every few years. Our last revision of this was done in 2003. In 2009, we looked at the revised model traffic code and found that there were a number of errors that had been made in terms of the model traffic code book compared to what we currently had. So we made the decision not to try to move that forward for adoption because of all of the work that was required in terms of reviewing that with the city attorney, city prosecutors, and the judge. In 2010, a lot of those errors were corrected, and as a result, we bring forward the 2010 model traffic code to be adopted. There are, if council looks through the actual ordinance packet, a number of additions and changes that have been made to that. I'll not go through all of those unless you have a specific question in regards to those. Some pertain to, in general, to commercial vehicles. Council will remember that we brought forward a revised fine schedule for commercial vehicles earlier this year, made some changes to the fee schedule as it pertains to fees and penalties associated with overloaded commercial vehicles. Section 236 is child restraint systems. There were some errors in that on the part of the state, so we had asked for some changes in that to bring it into compliance with state law. Trying to catch up with myself here, so give me just a second. And then the other changes had to do with driving within bike lanes. Speed limits, as council is aware, we set our minimum speed limit at 25 miles an hour, so that brings us into compliance as it pertains to speed. Parking of vehicles is a separate section, so we've added some pieces to that brings parking violations into compliance with already existing city ordinances. We've also made some changes to handicap parking. I think council was aware of a email from Mrs. Nancy Snow in regards to that particular handicap parking ordinance. The changes to that were brought forth at the request both of the police department and the municipal courts. The change to Section 5 of the handicap ordinance really allows the judge to take into consideration mitigating factors that don't exist with the way the ordinance is currently written. The changes to Section 6 do change the fine schedule. Currently, the judges can fine anywhere from $0 to $999 or $1,000. This subsection brings this into compliance with what the city prosecutor and the judge feels is a adequate fine schedule for handicap parking, and it changes it from the $300 to $1,000 limit to the proposed $50 to $300 limit. But it also adds language the fines cannot be suspended. And then the last section of the current state law, Section 7, has been removed. We, on average, the last 2 years, this year to date, we've issued 10 handicap parking violations. Last year we issued 19 handicap violations. The previous year only 10. So this essentially takes out a section that speaks to and describes what happens if a person who is not handicapped is driving a vehicle that has a handicap placard on that. Those are pretty difficult for us to prove if we do contact somebody, because in the majority of these, 99% of the citations that we issue for handicap parking, there's nobody in the vehicle when we issue the citation. It's just issued to the vehicle and not to a person. That subsection also talks about fines of $1,000 to $5,000, and those are outside the limits of our municipal court. So the changes that were made to the handicap parking piece have merely been brought in line with how we're currently enforcing handicap parking as it is now. And I think that captures the majority of changes to that. This is a standard every 3 to 5 year revision to make sure that our model traffic code is reflective of current changes to Colorado revised statutes. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Please step forward if you're here for item number 4. And please line up along the wall, and please spell your last name for the record and state your city or your address, please.
Keller, K-E-L-L-E-R, Steve Keller at 4325 Iowa Street in District 4. And the reason that I'm speaking is indirectly because of a suggestion from Chief Brennan that the issue of motorcycle noise should not fall under a noise ordinance, but really ought to be addressed in the traffic code of the city. And I want to make a couple of general comments. It appears to me, and I think it would appear maybe to other folks as well, and it has been recognized, for example, by the City of Golden Police Department in a published article, that the levels of motorcycle noise in their city increased to a point where they needed an ordinance and did pass one. And I think we're reaching that point too. On certain portions of our principal arteries, the ones that have the most observation of are 44th Avenue between Kipling and Wadsworth, and then also Wadsworth between 44th and 38th, and Kipling between 44th and I-70. Saturday and Sunday afternoons, the amount of excessive motorcycle noise on these arteries is increasing. It seems to me that it didn't used to be this way. I thought maybe it was just me, but when I read the article by the Golden PD that was published in one of their professional policemen's professional journals, I realized that it is true, and it's due to a demographic. I'm hesitant to ask the city to regulate someone else's behavior, but I think that we've reached a point where, because that behavior is now infringing upon the enjoyment that many of us have, and as it's put in the noise ordinance, our peace and repose, I think that it is time for the city to consider a motorcycle muffler noise ordinance. Not only because of the general pattern of increased noise on principal arteries, but also because there are point sources where on a weekly basis you can have intermittent, and by that I mean like every 5 to 7 minutes, excessive motorcycle noise lasting for hours, or a business sponsors an event where you have a really large amount of motorcycle noise, almost equivalent to a motorcycle rally. That occurred in our area on July 11th of this year. So those are the supporting reasons for my general recommendation that the city address the option or the possibility of regulating excessive motorcycle noise in keeping with the actions of our surrounding municipalities. Thanks very much.
Good evening. Mo Keller, Keller, 4325 Irish Street. I've handed out my statement, a two-pager to City Council, and then also an addendum for that describes silence is golden for the mayor, police chief, a city attorney, and city manager. We're manager now. The model code that you are looking at adopting this evening has in it, under Colorado Revised Statute Title 42-4-225, that has mufflers, prevention of noise, and it's a one page which I have copied out for you. So that's something that you will be adopting. It's inclusive in the model traffic code this evening. However, we have been apprised by several officers when several of us have called the police about motorcycle noise, particularly motorcycle noise, that it is a very difficult statute to enforce. By its wording, it's difficult to do. And so I have resubmitted to you, I had done this earlier, what our surrounding cities do, Arvada, Golden, Lakewood, and Denver, in terms of how they try to handle this problem of motorcycle and vehicle noise, cars as well, to be fair. Golden has had a biker bar for a very long time, 30, 40 years, I believe. And so they have been having this problem of what to do about concentrated motor vehicle or motorcycle noise. And the police chief there, William Kilpatrick, came up with an idea called Silence is Golden, in which he worked with the bar owner and the clientele of the bar to discuss the problem and ask how they themselves could be able to help monitor themselves and their fellow clients, if you will, clientele, to reduce the noise, to be good neighbors. And so I have submitted this in hopes that the City of Wheat Ridge might consider doing something about this particular approach with the bar that we have here that has as its business niche the motorcycle clientele that it has. So would appreciate anything that you can do to help alleviate the problem that we're experiencing in our neighborhood, but that also other neighborhoods are having as well. Thank you.
Ms. Keller, were you planning on bringing this information to your mediation?
Yes, we were scheduled for mediation with the Roadhouse on Saturday, August 11th. The owner had requested a reschedule, so we are now looking at August 21st at 7 or 7:30 in the evening, and we'll definitely be working with the bar owner, and the manager, I believe, will be there to talk about both the amplification of sound, the noise of the live entertainment, and the motorcycles.
Great, thanks.
Good evening. My name is Gina Robinson. I'm actually an Arvada resident. The reason I'm here is because...
Spell your last name for the record, please.
Oh, sorry, Robinson, Robinson. I'm actually here because I'm a governor appointee to the Colorado Advisory Council for Persons with Disabilities, and I'd like to talk about the sections that the chief has asked you to adopt. I'd like to give a little bit more information to you. The reason I was named to this council is because I have a child with disabilities. I also have a husband who was recently injured during a surgery and is now disabled. We do spend a lot of time in Wheat Ridge. My grandmother lives here, my mother lives here. And unfortunately, there's been several times in the last, I'd say 6 or 8 months, where we've had to leave business establishments because we couldn't find a parking spot. According to Cornell University in Colorado, there's 543,000 people with disabilities, and of that, there's 186,000 with physical disabilities. Unfortunately, in Colorado, there are 1.2 million placards issued. So you can see that we have a little bit of a discrepancy between who's eligible for one and who has them. In downtown, we did a study, and 30% of the parking placards had been modified to have a different date on them. So actually, they may have expired a year or 2 or 3 or 4 before, and people had simply taken a marker to those and modified them and changed the date and are still using them. The City of Denver did a survey around what was then known as the Quest building, and when they checked IDs against tags for people in those parking spots, More than 50% of them did not belong to the people in the car. When they confiscated placards at a Broncos game 2 years ago, they confiscated more than 200 being misused. This is not something that is just a Denver issue. It's not something that is just a smaller issue. In Arvada, we routinely have the officers patrol the Costco at 52nd and Wadsworth. They write between 2 and 5 tickets on a Saturday, and they confiscate on average 2 placards. So I hate to disagree with your police chief, but it is fairly easy under this new law to find the misused placards, and it is easy to confiscate them. The police in Arvada actually stay until somebody returns to the vehicle, and then they have them hand them over. That is a part of the new model traffic code, and I don't know that it's being included in what you guys are being asked to vote on. In Arvada, the minimum fine right now is $100. In Denver, it's $125. In Golden, it's $100. In California, the minimum fine for a misused placard is $250. The minimum fine that was put into this law is $350. We did this because there has to be some type of consequence for doing what people are doing. Usually that is money. That's why we raise the speeding violations. And your chief of police also said that you just recently raised the fines for commercial vehicles. We're asking you to raise the fine on this particular piece of the handicap parking also. The model traffic code also creates progressive penalties for people who continue to do this over and over again. And it does require a minimum fine, but your judges are allowed to reduce it. You do not have to give them that leeway. They have the leeway to reduce it already in the model traffic code that we are asking you to adopt. If you take a look at this is actually what's in the new model traffic code. And what we've done is marked in red what your police chief has asked you to adopt. This one right here is actually the new fine structure. It's very easy to read. It also gives you the fines that were also raised for physicians who sign these forms that are not for people who don't qualify for them. We also follow the federal requirements for these forms. So you do have to have one of 6 disabling conditions. We changed it so it used to be that you would mail in a card every year just to specify that you were still handicapped. You check, yes, I'm still handicapped, and they renewed your placard. That was done through the mail. And I can tell you that my dear sweet mother renewed my grandmother's for 6 years and used it herself. My grandmother was in a nursing home. My mother lives in Wheat Ridge. It's not a small issue. She doesn't do it anymore because now I'm on this board and we are charged with implementing this. But that's what happens. So the new forms also require that you get a doctor's certification every 3 years to prove that you still qualify for the forms. Hopefully that and the fines and the ability of the officers to confiscate the placards, to find out who they're issued to, because they now have numbers on them that allow the officers to call into DMV just like they do on other issues with license plates and find out who the placard belongs to. They can compare the placard with the driver's license of the person in the vehicle. If that person the placard is issued to is not in the vehicle, it's being misused and it can be confiscated at that point. We are asking that the confiscation happen, the fines happen, and that we try to alleviate and find some way to get 1.2 billion placards or million placards off the roads. Because people like my husband and people like Mark Simon, who actually wrote this bill and is in a wheelchair, it's not an inconvenience for them. It doesn't mean that they can go park at the end of the parking lot and still get into the store. It means that they go home without seeing the doctor, without getting their groceries, or in our case, spending Sundays at Apple Ridge. We don't get to do that when all these placards are on the road. Questions? Yes.
We'll come back around for questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm back again. have to come in every so often.
Can you spell your last name for the record?
Snow, S-N-O-W, Nancy Snow. Excuse me. I want to urge you to pass the model traffic code. My comments are only on the section about handicap parking. I don't know anything about any of the rest of it. But I want to ask you to pass it the way it's in the model traffic code, and that language comes from the state statute, not with these changes. I think it's important. We're just a little city. I realize we don't have hundreds of violations probably, but if every city decides to change the law a little bit, it doesn't work very well. We'd like to see uniform fines so somebody gets it. If they get a ticket in Arvada and they say, oh my goodness, I just got nailed $350, and gets the word around. But you don't want to say, well, but don't worry, in Wheat Ridge, you don't really have to pay that. The House bill that did this was the work of a lot of people who looked at a lot of problems, and Gina's told you about them. I wasn't on that committee. But it kind of surprises me that the recommendation of the chief, I hate to argue with the chief, he knows more about this than I do, that it recommends that you adopt everything up to the part of the code that Wheat Ridge enforces. He's recommending you adopt everything about how you get your permit, everything that Gina talked about. But when it gets to the enforcement part, the fine, which is what Wheat Ridge is obligated to do, that basically you're saying, well, don't bother. Now, I wish the municipal judge were here. I don't know what he really believes, but I would be kind of surprised in a way if he said, well, let's not follow state law. Maybe he did. I don't know. But I wish we knew a little bit more. I think our police department is fine about enforcing it when they can. I know someone who complained to our police department that somebody was parked in a handicapped zone without a permit, and the cop came, was very nice, and gave him a ticket. But now I wonder, when they got to the court, what happened to him? Nothing? $50? Or they said, poor thing, you don't have to pay that. Model codes are something that are very valuable to the city. We have a model plumbing code, an international building code, we have all kinds of things. And there's a reason for those. And I also do understand that cities have a right under some circumstances to change them. But I'd like to ask you, what is the rationale? What is your rationale for deleting the fines that this committee and the state legislature decided on? Now, I know a few years ago everybody was upset about a couple of things in the International Building Code, and you had several meetings and you discussed what your problems were and changed it. But this is just sort of a blanket recommendation. Take paragraph 7 out, put 5 and 6 together. That means it takes out all the fines, it takes out the surcharge, and it takes out something which is a kind of a sticky issue, sending half of the fine to the state for I guess you'd say, an education process. Wheat Ridge isn't some little city out in the plain that's different. We're next to 4 cities and the county. So unless somebody up there has an idea what's different about this city that justifies changing that, I guess I'd like to know what it is. So I'd like to urge you to pass the code without those amendments. If somebody else makes a motion to do that, please will somebody make an amendment to not change the fine schedule. And I thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to council discussion and questions, do we have any more else for public comment? Item 4. Mr. Dahl or Chief, did you want to address any of the issues that were discussed about the handicap or the ADA?
Well, I'll start, and then I'll let Mr. Dahl and Commander Lawrence jump in if they choose. I certainly understand and I'm sensitive to issues related to disabilities and handicaps, and I've talked to Nancy on a couple of occasions in regards to the fine schedule. The city's a home rule city, so it has the ability to modify, change, or create ordinances that are valid and reasonable. The changes that we're speaking about today to this particular ordinance came at the bequest of the judge, the city prosecutor, and the court administrator specifically. The fine schedule by our ordinances in municipal court is set, from a fine perspective of anywhere of a fine from $1 to $1,000, and jail time of 1 day to less than a year in jail. And those are the absolute limits. What this ordinance does is, particularly in Section 7, is it creates a series of surcharges and additional fines related to the number of times somebody may be a violator. In fact, it sets surcharges and fines up to $5,000, which would be in excess of what we charge. In addition, our courts is a pretty minimally staffed court system, and so from the courts, I know in my discussion with the court administrator and the judge, they don't have the personnel to track people who are repeat violators of this particular kind of case, to do the research is required to do that. Nor do we charge surcharges that are mandated by other statutes that exist. We don't do any surcharges as it's related to brain injuries, and we certainly could do that as a city. There's a provision in Colorado revised statutes to do that, but our city courts, as a matter of policy, has made a decision not to do a lot of the surcharges that they could do, that could go to other organizations and to other state entities, because they don't have the mechanism to track it, to report it, and so that's policy decision that's been made by them, not by the police department in particular. So the changes that are being recommended in this current revision of the Model Traffic Code are certainly reflective of what we're doing today as a police department. I wish I had the resources from a personnel perspective so I could devote more attention to the handicapped parking issue, but it's right now for us. It's a matter of priorities, other priorities that that take up our personnel resources and prevent us from being as proactive as we would like to be in that particular area. And Mr. Dahl or Mr. Lawrence, if you have anything else you want to add?
The only thing Jim Commander Lawrence might have is something, but the main point I want to make, the chief has made, and that's the jurisdictional limit on the municipal court's authority to impose fines, and that's $1,000. And so that's the one piece of it that, in particular, I agree with the other comments, but I wanted to stress that the municipal court's jurisdiction is $1,000, and it wouldn't be appropriate in this model traffic code were we to adopt it to try to vest jurisdiction in the court greater than that, up to this $5,000 number that's suggested.
I would just only add that on the occasions that people who are handicapped and need a space to park and can't find one, they should call the police department, and we can come out there and we can ensure that they get, if there are violators there, we can handle that at the time. If we're just driving on patrol, we may not know that exists, so we need to be that needs to be brought to our attention.
Thank you. Mr. Chief.
And I would just add, if council, these are recommendations from the courts and the city prosecutor. If council wants to add these back in there, you can certainly do that at your direction. We'll certainly do what we need to do in terms of enforcing it. These are just changes that we're recommending to you based on the input of other stakeholders in the process.
So we'll move on to council questions and discussion. Anybody have any? Ms. J?
Chief Brennan, if I may ask, you mentioned surcharges. Would we be required, if we adopted this as the state has written it and added back these items that have been changed, the surcharges that are difficult to maintain and keep records on, et cetera, would those be required that we would have to do that?
I'll let Mr. Dahl answer that one.
Sorry. Yes, if what you're doing is
if you adopt all of those,
You're
then
going to
you
adopt
must
it as
complete.
presented, then you're adopting the surcharge
They couldn't be
package
waived, okay.
with it. You know, you could get trickier and say we're adopting it all with the exception of, you know, I mean, you could start doing more detailed surgery, but if you were to adopt the model traffic code without the changes recommended on this subject, then you'd be adopting the surcharges.
This is tough. I'm not comfortable with our city being one that's not taking care of disabled people when all of our sister cities are doing so. And we have a population of 30,000, so we're not that tiny a city. Any 25,000 above is considered actually large. Golden is taking care of this, so this is a tough one for me.
Any other questions, Mr. Pond?
A couple questions, I guess. I just want to make a clarifying statement and make sure that I'm correct on this. We could adopt this as it's written here, but we actually don't have the jurisdiction to enforce the fine structure that is in here. So we could adopt it as ordinance. However, actually levying these fines, we could not do.
Above $1,000, that's correct.
Above $1,000. Okay, so that obviously that's an important.
So that's a practical limit on. Even if you adopted it, you'd
we
bump into
maxed
that.
out.
Yeah.
So we do have an option. I suppose this is a question as well to look at any of these things, the escalating factor of the fine structure up to $1,000, whether we participate in the surcharge, whether we participate in the fine transfer back to the state. And come up, for instance, with something like a minimum fine of $350, not to exceed $1,000, and a second offense of $600, not to exceed $1,000. That's within our jurisdiction. We'd have to exclude the subsection B for commercial carriers because obviously immediately by doubling the $1,000 fine, we've kind of gotten out of our jurisdiction. So really the limit that's stated in this is $10,000, not $5,000 to be clear. But we'd have to pick this apart a little bit, but we could, for instance, say if we didn't, for personnel reasons, want to participate in surcharge or transfers because of the personnel burden of that, but we do have the capacity and the jurisdiction to implement a minimum fine of $350 up to $1,000, or $600 up to $1,000. We have that capability.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? I would recommend if anybody wanted to make any amendments, that we would take a 5-minute recess. You could ask Mr. Dahl for the amendment in writing, and then you can make that amendment. Do we want to take a 5-minute recess? Anybody have any amendments they want to make, or should I close the public hearing?
We take that 5-minute recess.
Okay, we'll take a
and make the
5-minute
amendment.
recess, and you could ask Mr. Dahl for the motion and for a copy for the clerk. So we'll come back around 8:15. And
Mr. Mayor,
do we have any more questions or comments, Mr. Dahl?
just from a procedural standpoint, when you're ready to actually act, the thing to do, I think, is to take the motion that's in the packet. Someone else other than Councilmember Pond could just make that motion, and that motion can be seconded, and then you can ask if there are any amendments to that motion. And Councilmember Pond can read his amendment. If that's seconded, you'll vote on that amendment first. Then, as usual, you've got an amended motion. The whole works is in front of you. You can vote on the main motion.
Any other questions or comments before I close the public hearing? So Mr. Stites will make the main motion. We have a couple of amendments coming. Okay. I'll close the public hearing and a motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 13, 2012, and ordinance adopting by reference the 2010 edition of the Model Traffic Code for Colorado, adopting amendments thereto, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewithin, providing penalties for the Model Traffic Code violations, and making conforming amendments to Chapter 13 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws on second reading, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication.
Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Starker. Mr. Pond, do you have an amendment?
I do. I move to amend by replacing Section 6 on page 9 with the following. 6. A person who does not have a disability and who exercises the privilege defined in subsection 2 of this section, or who violates subsection 5 or 10 of this section, commits a Class B traffic infraction punishable by a minimum fine of $350 not to exceed $1,000 for the first offense, and a minimum fine of $600 not to exceed $1,000 for a second offense or subsequent offenses. 6B, a person who violates this subsection 6 by parking a vehicle owned by a commercial carrier as defined in section 42-1-102-17 shall be subject to a fine of up to twice the penalty imposed in paragraph A of this subsection 6 not to exceed $1,000. I further move to insert an amended section 7 to read as follows. 7, a person who does not have a disability and who uses an identifying license plate or placard in order to receive the benefits or privileges available to a person with a disability under this section commits a misdemeanor punishable by a minimum fine of $350 not to exceed $1,000 for the first offense, and a minimum fine of $600 not to exceed $1,000 for a second or subsequent offense. I further move to insert an amended section 8 to read as follows. 8A, a police officer or authorized parking enforcement official may check the identification of a person using an identifying license plate or placard in order to determine whether such use is authorized.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the amendment. It was seconded by Councilmember Jay. Any questions on the amendment? Do you have a copy for the clerk?
She has it.
Okay. Questions on the amendment? Please poll the council on the amendment.
The motion carries 7-0.
So now we have the main motion as amended. Discussion on the main motion as amended. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is ordinances on first reading. The purpose of first reading is to set the date and time of the public hearing called the second reading. Amendments by council are allowed on first reading. Public comment is not allowed until second reading. So move on to item 5 is Council Bill number 14-2012. Mr. Pond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 14-2012, an ordinance amending section 26-603 of Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning regulation of sight distance triangles and swimming pool fences, case number ZOA-11-06. The issue, current regulations related to sight distance triangles are difficult to apply, enforce, and explain. In the same section of the zoning code, requirements for swimming pool fences do not correspond with adopted versions of the building code. The attached ordinance seeks to resolve these two issues and address the following central goals: improve the ability to field locate a sight distance triangle, update the vertical clear zone dimensions to align with national standards, standardize the method of measurement for a sight distance triangle and clear zone, align zoning and building codes related to swimming pool fences, and improve the clarity and organization within the city code. Is the motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill Number 14-2012, an ordinance amending Section 2603 of Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning regulation of the site distance triangles and swimming pool fences on first reading, order it published. Public hearing set for Monday, August 27th, 2012 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
Okay, a motion to approve item number 5 that was seconded by Councilor Stites and Demott. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 6 is Council Bill number 15-2012. Ms. Davis.
Thank you. Council Bill Number 15-2012, an ordinance submitting a proposed amendment of the Wheat Ridge Home Rule Charter to the voters of the city pursuant to the Charter Section 16.8B, setting the ballot title for same. Issue: this ordinance initiates the procedures to call an election to amend the Home Rule Charter to clarify that all elected positions in the city, mayor, treasurer, clerk, and council members, be elected by the greatest number of votes cast. Existing charter sections require election by majority of votes, raising the potential for runoff elections. Motion in order.
Motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill Number 15-2012, an ordinance submitting a proposed amendment of the Wheat Ridge Home Rule Charter to the voters of the city pursuant to Charter Section 16.8B, and setting the ballot title for the same on the first reading. Order it published. Public hearing set for Monday, August 27, 2012 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve item number 6. It was seconded by Mr. Starker. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7 is Council Bill number 16-2012. Mr. Demott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 16-2012, an ordinance amending Section 16-103 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning unreasonable noise and providing for a special events permit for amplified sound on private property. This ordinance amends the present noise ordinance and creates a special permit program for amplified sound at outdoor events on private property. Date and time limits will be imposed and other conditions are permitted. The ordinance provides for a limited exemption from the city's noise ordinance code 16-103. Is the motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 16-2012, an ordinance amending Section 16-103 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning unreasonable noise and providing for a special events permit for amplified sound on private property on first reading. Order it published. Public hearing is set for Monday, August 27th, 2012 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and let it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve as stated in the packet. It was seconded by Councilmember Langworthy. Mr. Stites.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add an amendment. I move to amend Council Bill number 16-2012, Series 2012, at Section 16-103B1 and B3 to read as follows. 1. Any noise or sound which is audible from the mobile noise or sound source or from any loudspeaker, public address system, or other sound amplifying equipment in a motor vehicle in such a manner as to be plainly audible at 25 feet in any residential district and at 50 feet in any commercial or industrial district. 3. Any noise, sound source, or any person or group of persons engaged in loud and continuing activities which are audible 25 feet or more from the noise source in any residential district and 50 feet from the noise source in any commercial or industrial district at the property line of the property upon which the noise source is located or upon which such activities are taking place and continuing for a minimum of 15 minutes.
Is there a second on the amendment?
Second.
We have a motion to amend. It was seconded by Mr. Demott. Discussion on the amendment. Ms. Langworthy.
I have a couple questions about this. My biggest concern about this is that we have two different distances. One's for residents and one for commercial and industrial. We have a lot of residents the way our zoning map is, we have a lot of residential R1s, R2s, and various ones that sit within commercial. you can look at 38th Avenue and see that, just on 38th Avenue. So I guess my concern with this is what happens if the police goes out and it's a commercial property that, I mean, if you have 25 feet for residential and 50 feet for commercial, what happens if the residential doesn't, they're too close to actually qualify for that because the residential is, I guess that's my kind of concern. Is how do we handle those kind of calls?
Well, I'll start with my response. The chief and I spoke about this amendment, and we felt that the distance is really a policy decision for council to make, and as long as it's written in such a way that it can be enforced, we're fine with the distance, and I'll let the chief speak to enforcement issues.
If I could speak to two issues. The issue of mobile noise source in a commercial area, the way that it's written would mean that the way that it's currently written, it's 25 feet from a mobile noise source. So somebody with a boombox in their car, whether they're in a residential or commercial area, it applies the same. When we enacted that particular code amendment in 2005, it was specifically to address the issues that we were having with loud music boomboxes from vehicles. So I'd be a little hesitant to say in a commercial area from a vehicle it's 50 feet and in a residential it's 25 feet, because from an enforcement perspective, when it comes to noise from mobile sources, it's very, very similar. So whether you enact 25 feet or 50 feet, I think we should be consistent in regards to that. And my recommendation to council from a policy perspective would be that you would keep noise from a mobile source at 25 feet. As it concerns noise and the amplified music ordinance, whether you set it at 25 feet or 50 feet or the property line of the business or the property line of the affected party, a police officer just needs the consistency of knowing how do I apply this particular ordinance in this particular situation or this set of factors. So I don't have a whole lot of concern as it pertains to whether that limit is 25 feet or 50 feet or 75 feet. I mean, it's really your decision to set and to establish. I think Councilmember Langworthy's concern as it pertains to setbacks from commercial properties to residential properties is a valid one. I think with whatever ordinance that you come up with as a council is going to present certain problems and certain types of scenarios depending on where you are in the city. So 50 feet might work in some areas of the city. It might be too liberal in other parts of the city. It's really up to you to decide, and then we'll do our best to try to apply the ordinance to the particular situations that we run into. But we could live with 50 feet if that's council's direction, because it does give us some specific guidelines. We could live with 25 feet. We could live with, property boundaries as well. So,
Mr. Starker.
I had a question maybe for Mr. Dahl on number 3. Maybe I'm a little confused because it says that the activity 25 feet or more from the noise source. So is that where we start the tape, or is it from the property line?
In that case, it's from the noise source. So you're right. It's from the noise source, not the property line.
So arguably, it may be more than 25 feet or 50 feet from the noise source to the property line.
That's right. That's right. Although what you've also pointed out, I think is helpful, and again, I'm not the officer on the street trying to figure out how to write a ticket, and frankly, a very difficult setting. But I suppose if I were forced to say which number applies, where you're hearing sounds in a residential area that emanate from a commercial district, I'd use the language X number of feet from the noise source in any residential district. So the source in a residential district, and I'd say, okay, it's where the source is located. If the source is located in a residential district, then I'm going to measure 25 feet out from that source. If the source itself, even though it's got residential right next to it, is zoned commercial, then I'm going to start the tape at the source and go out 50 feet. I think if I were forced to, be the officer on patrol, that's how I'd look at it.
Thank you.
I guess what we could do is, if council wanted to, you could amend the amendment, take out the 50 feet for the number 1, which the chief had recommended not to have 50 feet for the mobile source. So you could either do that or not pass this amendment and then make another amendment. So it's kind of up to council. You can amend an amendment one time. So, Mr. Pond?
Just a question, because I think my concern also was about some of the obvious locations where we have commercial zoning abutting residential zoning in some of these locations. But I guess a question, I would assume that in the special permit process that the staff has the opportunity to review the location that's being requested and to use discretion in the conditions of approving the special permit, so that, for instance, in a commercial property, you're not abutting in the rear of the commercial property right next to a residential property where 50 feet is obviously going to go into the residence. In other words, that would be potentially something that staff would handle in the special permit process. Is that how you see it?
Yes, I think that's exactly right. You notice we attached a form that doesn't have to be the final form, but just to kind of give council a sense of how this might work in real life. And you'll notice the permit itself, which is the last page, has room for other conditions. And that would be really the place for the city manager to assess the individual circumstance on the ground at that particular location and design conditions that responded to that location.
Okay, and then I think I share the confusion now that I look at it after Mr. Starker has raised the issue about whether the property line of the property upon where the noise source is located is redundancy or conflict in this language on Section 3. It seems like you could exclude the property line and still measure from the source, that you don't need that second port, but maybe I'm not reading it right.
The reference to property line, I think that's probably true. If you're measuring it from the source,
you don't need that.
You probably don't need the reference to the property line.
You could strike at the property line of the property upon which the noise source is located.
I think that you could, or upon which such activities are taking place, because it's really the noise source.
It's
Where's
the
that?
source. It's the source that drives the.
Where's the stereo?
Okay.
Ms. Davis?
I'll probably get tomatoes thrown at me for this one, but it seems we keep doing workarounds on a lot of this, and the distance and commercial versus residential, and how, I will say initially I supported this permit process because I wanted to make sure to protect and to encourage businesses to, we're becoming a livelier neighborhood, and encourage businesses for outdoor activities and events and jazz in the park or movies in the parking lot and those types of things. And I guess as we get deeper into it, it seems as if, and this just might be my perception, but it seems as if things are just getting more and more complicated, and we're trying to do workarounds. And I guess I have to go back, and this is where the tomatoes might be thrown, to our initial ordinance and ask Chief Brennan, and what your thought is. It's almost like I guess my question is, we had one situation that created some problems, And other than that, do you find or see the need to be making these major revisions to the ordinance, or do you feel the ordinance 99% of the time covers the situations that we might be having in the future? Because it just seems like we continue to make certain little tweaky workarounds.
Well, you've done a good job of putting me on the hot seat, haven't you? You know, the current ordinance as it's written worked 100% of the time for the kinds of noise issues and noise violations that we had up until recently. And I don't have a crystal ball to say how many other businesses might take advantage of similar situations that we're encountering now, but I can tell you that most of the jurisdictions around us have some version of an amplified noise ordinance. That they have a normal noise ordinance to deal with the normal kinds of noise issues you have. Some are very specific. I mean, Denver's gets very, very specific in regards to every kind of noise that's out there, and we don't have those types of issues today, but we might 10 years from now have very similar issues that cause us to revisit that. So in terms of addressing some of the challenges that we're faced today in regards to the current noise ordinance, we could use the current noise ordinance to deal with some of the issues and challenges that we're facing, but looking at things that are on the horizon and on the future, I think that as a city we need to make sound policy decisions as pertains to those kinds of issues and those kinds of businesses that are developing in our community, and to the best of our ability put in place policies that meet both the needs of the existing neighborhoods and new business opportunities that are developing in the community. For instance, if you take one pizza business's plans to do movie in the parks in a parking lot. Well, I don't know how loud that's going to be, but it could be loud enough to generate complaints from surrounding neighborhoods, because the back fences of the businesses are the backyards of residences. So giving us an opportunity to have something that gives some leeway that is reasonable to businesses to have amplified events within reason, I think is a sound policy decision by council. And it might very well change in a year. We might see where the issues and problems with this are, and we may have other businesses that come into existence, and we may be bringing back future changes in different areas as it pertains to amplified music. So I think it's a good policy discussion, and really from a police department's perspective, we're really just looking for that direction from council so we can do a better job in terms of education, which I think is paramount to any change that we make, and then enforcement if we have to take enforcement actions.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure that we are respectful to the businesses, especially if they organize some of these events, but at the same time respectful of the neighborhoods, and it sounds like setting some of these measures up will do both.
I think so.
Thank you.
Mr. Pond. Oh, sorry, Mr. Pond.
No, I was just wondering.
Oh, Mr. Stites.
Yeah, keep the tomatoes out. Because I myself am getting real cranky with this thing. And that's the problem that we've had. When you go to write an ordinance for one situation, one thing, and this is what comes of it. But we've got to quit messing around here and make a decision. I see problems coming, or not necessarily problems. I think they possibly could be good problems with the things that are going on 38th Avenue, 44th Avenue, different things. So, yeah, we're approaching a zone that we haven't been to yet. And I think this is a good way. But, I'm getting real cranky with this. We've, gone 360 degrees on this thing, back and forth and this and that. So we need to make a decision and do it tonight.
Okay, so we have an amendment, and I think Mr. Pond wanted to amend the amendment, which is fine. We can do that one time.
Yes, I move to amend the amendment by striking in section 1, the in any residential district and at 50 feet in any commercial or industrial district, and in striking in section 3, following the words industrial district, at the property line of the property upon which the noise source is located, or.
Good. Is there a second for the amendment to the amendment?
I have a question.
I need a second. I need a second first.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have this. The amendment's been seconded by Mr. Starker. The amendment to the amendment. Now, Ms. Langworthy.
I wasn't sure if I heard you correctly, so I just wanted to confirm what I heard. On 3, you want to strike just the industrial district, not commercial?
No, I was saying following. I was just trying to, following the words industrial
following.
district.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Yeah, I'll say it again. Following the words industrial district in section 3, strike at the property line of the property upon which the noise source is located, or.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That strike through continue and through the words upon which such activities are taking place, because again, the whole approach here is from the noise source.
Okay.
And if the noise source, wherever the noise source is, my other suggestion, just for parallelism, it's got 25 or more feet, and then it says 50 feet, so it should probably be 50 or more feet. That's just last-minute editing.
Is that okay with the second, Mr. Starker?
Fine with me.
Okay with the maker of the motion?
Yes.
And we're stopping at the word
And
place?
continuing.
And, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the amendment. It was seconded by Mr. Starker. Please poll the council on the amendment to the amendment. Joyce, do you have a question on the amendment to the amendment?
I do. We're only allowed to amend one.
Right.
Okay. I don't.
Well, one deep. You know, you can come back and amend it again, but we're doing one at a time.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. So now we're polling the council on the amendment to the amendment from Mr. Pond. So please poll the council on that.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. So now we have that amendment out of the way. So now we have the main amendment as amended. Ms. J.
I'm concerned about the fact that the minimum of 15 minutes. I'm okay with 15 minutes, but we do not have anything in there about not to be repeated, because as I recall, one of the problems that came up that there was 15 minutes allowed noise and then a break and then 15 minutes allowed noise. And I don't know if we are handling that.
Mr. Dahl or Mr. Chief Brennan, any comment on that?
I would like the chief to comment on sort of just as a practical enforcement matter how the department would respond to that kind of pattern. But obviously if they're 15 minutes, then you can cite them. What you're really saying is if it's 14 minutes and then nothing and then another 14 minutes, you could, it's a little complicated, but you could articulate that and say that just as we've got an approach in our code for idling commercial vehicles that some of you may recall. I think Councilmember Stites recalls, and it's they can be idling for no more than a certain amount of time in any given 2-hour period. So you could do the same sort of approach and say the limit's 15 minutes, but also it's a violation if it's any more than X number of minutes in a 2-hour period, and kind of add up a bunch of 14 minutes and just make sure that it's a violation. You could, that's an approach you could take to the issue you raised, but more fundamentally, I suppose, is how the department would react now or does to that kind of fact pattern now. And I'm not sure how you do that now. Or you have to-
Well, right now we've not added. It's only become an issue to my knowledge on one occasion, and we've certainly not aggregated. The different violations in that. The first part of the code, from my perspective, really touches on what unreasonable noise is, and it talks about the annoying and injuring and disturbing and those kinds of pieces, and then it gives the prima facie pieces under that, which are your subsections 1 through whatever we're at now. So it's possible that we would be able to aggregate those and take it to municipal court and see how the judge rules on that based on the way that the code is written today. The other thing that council needs to keep into consideration, and this is a tough part as it pertains to dealing with issues of disturbing the peace, is oftentimes, in fact, the majority of times when we respond on issues of disturbing the peace, what we're asked to do is to get the responsible party or the noise source to turn the music down. And that's 95% of the time. That's how we respond. That's what's requested. A lot of times we get anonymous complaints of noise. And to prove that case in court, although the ordinance gives us the ability to say that the police officer can cite, it's really difficult for a judge or a prosecutor to present that case and present a winnable case if it's just the police officer that's testifying, because all they're really testifying to is we received a call, we responded, and this is what we've heard. So it becomes a real sterile presentation in regards to that particular court case. So we like to have witnesses or residents or business owners or whoever it might be, come to court and sign the complaint and testify, because it makes our case a stronger case to win in court. But that's probably only in 3 to 5% of all of disturbing the peace, noise kinds of violations that we respond out. The majority of them they want handled civilly, turn the music down, and that's what we attempt to do. Now we will take stronger action and ask for somebody to sign a citation if it's a repeat violation, kind of situation. But we don't have those too frequently, because most of the times when we ask people to turn the music down, they do. The vast majority of times, not all the time. Does that help?
I guess
You
what
have
you're
a
saying,
perplexed look.
usually that takes care of it. There's not a repeating 15 minutes of loud noise or...
There can be. I mean, we've recently had a situation where somebody was making really loud, unreasonable noise for about 10 to 12 minutes and then shutting it down. And we didn't take any enforcement action because there was nobody in that case that wanted to cite. And there obviously, as we revise and amend this, based on the interpretation from the city attorney, we're going to have training in regards to, for our officers, in regards to what this means and what they can do with that particular ordinance.
Well, let me just ask that as it is written then, you're feeling, are you saying that you're comfortable that you can enforce it with not having to add more language about repeating the noise?
I think to address your concerns, some language that addresses that, because the code's pretty specific in regards to its 15 minutes. Now, if I'm continually responding to a location where somebody's doing this for 10 or 12 minutes, I'm probably going to write the ticket, see if I'm going to win that case in court. If I lose it, we're going to have to come back and revisit and rewrite this. But the first part of the preamble of the unreasonable noise generally, I certainly think sets the parameter for what's noise that annoys and disturbs and bothers, and that's what.
And I think that's important to remember. It's a mistake, I think, to pull out each of these little paragraphs in isolation, because what these paragraphs are that we're looking at in the amendment are one of a list of 4 different things, which are, as they say, prima facie, gotcha, dead to rights violations. But you don't have to find yourself in those. The preamble, as Dan mentions, is the main rule. And you could even stop with the main rule. The little list of 4 things just makes it easier to prove up. But the main rule is it's unlawful to make a noise or continue to make a noise that would, under all the circumstances presented, annoy, injure, endanger the comfort, etc. of someone. And forgetting the rest of it, that allows you to charge someone if they are doing the 10 minutes and then 5 and 10 minutes. That's still making a noise that violates that preamble, which is the main rule. And I think it's probably important to bear that in mind.
Okay, so we had an amendment to the amendment that passed. Now, if there's no other questions, we're just voting on the original amendment made by Mr. Stites as amended. Please poll the council on that amendment.
Motion carries 7-0.
Now we're voting on the main motion from Mr. Demott as amended. Please poll the council on that.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. So, Janelle, I have some notes here, too, for the minutes, if you need it. Thank you. That was a little bit tougher, but I think we got it through. It's the first time we've amended an amendment in a long time. So, next item on the agenda is decisions, resolutions, and motions. Item 8, Councilmember Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Title of this is a motion to accept the 2011 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. I know you're excited about this. All right. Actually, this was a big, fun report that was just really interesting to read. Section 10.15 of the Municipal Charter for the City of Wheat Ridge requires that an independent audit be performed annually on all city accounts. CPA firm Swanhurst and Company, LLC, performed the audit of the city's financial statement for the year ended December 31st. This is 2011. A representative from Swanhurst and Company will be at the August 13th City Council meeting to represent the 2011 CAFR to City Council for acceptance. As reported in the attached management letter from Swanhurst and Company, the following conclusions were reached from the audit. Number 1, we noted no transactions entered into the city during the year that were both significant and unusual, and of which, under professional standards, we are required to inform you, or transactions for which there is a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. Number 2, we evaluated the key factors and assumptions used to develop the estimates and determining that they are reasonable in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. Number 3, we provided management with a schedule of audit adjustments. Management has determined that a significant adjustment to the Wheat Ridge Urban Renewals Authority's accounts record may be made to report the land held for resale at estimated market value. A couple more here. Because it is held for resale, it must be reported at market value, which will require the city to continuously evaluate the carrying of the property. Number 4, we are pleased to report that no such disagreements with management arose during the course of the audit. And number 5, we encountered no significant difficulties while performing our audit.
Motion's in order.
Let me find this here. Oh, well, this might take a while to get down here. Recommended motion. I move to accept the 2011 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report from Swanhurst and Company, LLC.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 8 by Ms. Jay, was seconded by Mr. Stites and Mr. Demott. We have a quick presentation, I believe, from Swanhurst.
Good evening. I'm Wendy Swanhurst with Swanhurst and Company. I won't go through this whole report, so don't worry.
You have a PowerPoint?
I have with me your 2011 financial statements, and also I think you all got a copy of this management letter. This is our communication to you. I'm going to go through this very quickly because it tells you what it is we do and what we found during our audit process. So essentially it starts out to tell you that these numbers come from your accounting records. You guys, as the governing board of the city, hire us to tell you that these numbers are fairly stated in all material respects. And so within this document, you'll find our audit opinion that tells you that we think that they are. And it's a clean or unqualified opinion. So that's the best opinion you can get. One other thing we did this year that we haven't done each year, that we haven't done in the past several years, is anytime you get over $500,000 in federal money, we're required to do some additional procedures to make sure you complied with the grant agreements and the federal laws, and that you have internal controls over those federal awards. So in the back of this report, you'll see some additional opinions. But again, we did not identify any significant deficiencies in that process either. So our other responsibility in this letter is if we identify those significant deficiencies in your controls or anything like that, we're required to put those in this letter. And the good news is that we did not put anything that rose to that level in this letter. Your accounting records are actually in good condition. We didn't propose significant adjustments to the books at all. There are some recommendations on the last page of this letter. But again, we don't think they rose to that level. And if you want me to talk about any of those specifically, I'd be happy to do that. But I think at this point, I'll just let you ask questions or anything else you want me to expand on.
Any questions for Wendy? Thank you. Looks like it's
Thank
pretty
you.
good. So we have a motion to approve. It was seconded for item number 8. Any questions for council or staff? Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 9 is Mr. Starker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 9 is titled, A Motion to Approve the Use of the City-Owned Parking Lot at 7150 West 38th Avenue, North High Court between 38th and 39th Avenue, and placement of banners on city-owned pedestrian lights between Harlan Street and Sheridan Boulevard for the 38th Avenue grand opening. At issue in this matter is the City, Wheat Ridge 2020, and the 38th Avenue Leadership Committee are hosting a grand opening for 38th Avenue on Saturday, September 22nd. We hope everyone will be there. This event will include a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the city fund and improvements on the street, a market festival, and an outdoor movie. The event includes the use of city-owned property that requires approval by the City Council. Is a motion in order?
Motion's in order.
Well, therefore, I move to approve the use of the city-owned parking lot at 7150 West 38th Avenue, closure of North High Court between 38th and 39th Avenue, and placement of banners on city-owned pedestrian lights between Harlan Street and Sheridan Boulevard for the 38th Avenue grand opening on September 22nd, 2012.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item number 9. It was seconded by Mr. Stites. Discussion on item 9. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda for the evening. We'll move on to City Manager's Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to announce to the public that the city is going to sponsor another Civic Academy this year. Our tentative dates this year are October 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. We'll have four evenings. So if you are interested, please contact Nathan Mosley at the city or look at our website for more information. I think we need a minimum of 12 people to sign up, so we'd love to have you join us. Also would like to announce that the Recreation Center is going to have its annual closure this August 27th through the 31st for maintenance. Those people with passes can use the Golden Rec Center that week for the same price as that you paid for the Wheat Ridge. So, and that's it.
Thank you. Move on to City Attorney's Matters. Hope you feel better. I know you have a cold. Oh, good. City Clerk's Matters.
I just want to thank you all for the minutes that I'm going to have to do tomorrow on the municipal traffic code and the noise ordinance. I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. I just wanted to remind everybody that the Carnation Festival is this weekend, August 17th and 18th. The circus will be going on for the next 2 weeks, so please you can get your tickets at the Rec Center or at City Hall. I think also some ticket outlets have them. They're general admission tickets. There's still coupons available to get $5 off, so that they'd be 10. Regularly, they're 15. And I also wanted to thank, I sponsored a Live Local event with Wheat Ridge 2020 in the Ridge Center. Mr. DeMott had a great turnout last Thursday. We had about 86 to 100 people show up, and they enjoyed the parking lot, and they had the Italian bagpipes. No, they were just Irish bagpipes. I'm sorry. So it was a great event, and I left after about a couple hours, but I heard we had a good attendance, a lot of folks. So the Live Local events are really moving forward and helping out with getting the community together. So with that, I'll move on to Mr. Starker.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Ms. Davis?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Pond?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. DeMott?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
This is going too bad. Mr. Stites?
Oh, yeah. Would be a great time to relocate your business or home to Wheat Ridge. If you need any help, see one of us or staff. Would be happy to help you. Positive thing, you gotta cut the weeds. I tell you, it's looking pretty junky out there. And if you've got an elderly neighbor or that for that matter, a neighbor that's not doing it, handle it. You know, it won't take you more than 5, 10 minutes. Just do it. And as always, please try to find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Langworthy?
Well, school starts again next Monday, so I guess my annual plea to just watch out for the little ones. They start school and they're somewhat excited about it and may forget that they actually have to watch where they're going on the road. So if you could do your part to keep an eye out for the little guys and gals. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jay?
I want to jump on the mayor's bandwagon about the Carnation Festival. And I'm hoping somebody's listening out there because in talking to the co-chairman, Margie, they are really, really in serious need of volunteers for Friday and Saturday, a variety of things, and the volunteer base is not there, which could be costly in a variety of ways. To volunteer, please go online, the Carnation Festival. They have a section on the top that says volunteers, and you can sign up for either the circus or the festival itself. But 2-hour shifts, I volunteered, and I'm really encouraging anybody that can, because we really do need the help on this one.
Thank you. I wanted to thank council for the work we've done and staff has done on the noise ordinance. I know it was sort of a long process. It kind of came full circle, but I think, like Mr. Stites has said, and the chief and everybody else, is that we have to be visionary a little bit and move forward, because we're going to have some events coming up in the future, and I think this will take care of a lot of issues. So thanks to everybody for working on it, and I enjoyed working with Mr. Dahl, and I think the amendments were sound tonight, so thank you again, and we're adjourned.